All right, everybody. Hello, happy Friday. This is State Senator Mallory McMorrow, and welcome to a very special edition of our almost weekly virtual coffee hour. This week, we are very pleased to have two special guests joining us. We have Rochester Hills Clerk Tina Barton and Royal Oak Clerk Melanie Halas. Melanie, say hi. So just how this works, we're going Zoom to Facebook. So if there's a little bit of a lag, bear with it. Technology is magical that we can even do this, but bear with it. So the Zoom feed will automatically connect to whoever is speaking. And just to give everybody a rundown of what we wanted to do today. So obviously this is a big, big election year. We are in a place in Michigan where after 2018, any resident can vote no reason absentee for the first time. And we've seen record numbers of residents take advantage of that option, particularly because we are in the middle of a pandemic during an election. So we have been getting inundated with questions in our office from constituents leading up to the election. And we figured we wanted to bring the experts right to you. So we're going to talk to two of our amazing clerks, our election experts covering our entire district from north to south, and just wanted to run through some of the questions that you've pre-submitted. But for anybody who is joining us, if there's a question that we are not asking that you would like to have asked, feel free to drop it in the comments. We'll take a look and try to get as many of these questions answered as we can. So with that, I'm going to jump right into it because we've got some questions. So the first question is a scandalous one by name, but not by content, around naked ballots. So a lot of people were asking, what happens if a ballot is returned without a secrecy sleeve? And Tina, we'll start with you.
Sure. So in the absentee counting boardroom, once they open the envelope, if they can see at that time that the ballot is not in a secrecy sleeve, they will immediately pull it out and immediately put it in a secrecy sleeve for further processing.
All right. Melanie, do you have anything to add?
Nope, that's exactly the same process that we have.
I love when there's a straightforward answer to questions. All right, the next one is, this is one that came in this week that I thought was really interesting. Somebody said they had started filling out their ballot and their pen bled through a little bit of their ballot. So they switched to another pen. Is that going to invalidate their ballot? It was pretty specific, but I think the general version of the question is, what happens if ink bleeds through your ballot? What should you do? Melanie, let's start with you.
It's actually all right if ink bleeds through, because actually we'll grab a sample ballot here. If you look here where all the target areas are, on the back side of the ballot, if it were to bleed through, it's not going to bleed through in any of the boxes. So it's still going to be a valid ballot and it will still go through the tabulator and will still be processed. We do have people that come in and they want to spoil their ballot because of that, and they don't need to, but if they have peace of mind that they want to, that's fine, but it does not invalidate your ballot.
Awesome. Tina, I think this is a good segue into another question. Spoiling a ballot, what is that? What does that mean?
So what that means is maybe you, for a couple of reasons, you could have multiple reasons why you might want to spoil a ballot. And one of those could be that you made a mistake. So possibly, for instance, in a race where it says to vote for not more than one, you voted for two. So you realize that you've made a mistake like that. Or it could be that you initially filled out your ballot and voted for a candidate and have changed your mind. And so you want to vote for a different candidate, but in order to do that, you need to spoil your ballot. So you can do that in multiple ways with us. Really the best way to do that right now, given the time frame we're in, is to come into your local clerk's office. And if you spoil it right there, we'll spoil that. We'll take that ballot from you. We're going to issue you a new ballot number. And then we have privacy booths set up here at City Hall in Rochester Hills. You could go to any of those privacy booths if you wanted, vote the ballot, return it to us right then if you would like, or you could go ahead and take the ballot with you today.
All right. So how long do you have to spoil a ballot? If somebody has, let's say, sent in their ballot, they're thinking through it, they're like, oh my gosh, I think I made a mistake. Because I just want to clarify for people, the only notification that you would get as a voter if your ballot is rejected is if your signature doesn't match, correct?
That's correct. So because obviously we're not opening the ballots until we're at the point of tabulation. So at that point, there's no going back, right, for an absentee ballot. So with some of the changes that were brought through with Senate Bill 757 that passed recently, just so people are aware, if they want us to mail them a ballot, if they're spoiling and want us to mail it out back to them, they need to do that by 5 p.m. on Friday. They can come into our office up until 10 a.m. on Monday, the day prior to the election, and spoil their ballot. But that 10 a.m. marker, it used to be 4 p.m. It is no longer 4 p.m. on the day prior to the election, because with that change, allowing us to start the pre-processing of ballots at 10 a.m. on Monday, the day prior to the election. That's why we now have to have that cutoff, because at that point, those ballots will have been surrendered to the absentee counting board. And again, we can't go in and get a ballot and spoil it at that point once it's gone into the counting board.
Good to know. A lot of new information this year, but I think the top tip for everybody, if you've got your ballot at home, read the directions, read them very carefully, take your time, make sure you're going through and you're filling it out per the instructions. But if you do feel like you've made a mistake, that's not just your signature matching. It is on you to go to request to spoil your ballot, because exactly to Tina's point, the ballots aren't going to get counted or opened until we start tabulating. And once we're tabulating ballots, you can't request to get it back. So if you think there is a mistake in terms of maybe selecting too many candidates within a race, that is something that you've got to keep track of, because there isn't a mechanism, and there shouldn't be, frankly, because once we start counting, we're counting, that your ballot would be flagged for you as the voter. So thinking about the primary, in the primary election, I believe, Melanie, and correct me if my numbers are off, but I think I've got them, there were about 10,000 ballots that were rejected from the primary for a number of reasons. Some is that they came in too late, some is that the signature didn't match, some were filled out incorrectly. And I think there were about 800 people who had passed away, unfortunately, between the time they filled out their ballot and by the time the election day came. Is that correct, Melanie?
Yes.
I got it. I got the numbers in my head. I've been doing a lot of reading on this. All right, Melanie, I'm going to kick this one to you. A pretty common question that we're getting now is for people who said they've requested an absentee ballot, but they haven't received it yet. What should they do?
They should call the clerk's office, definitely. We can look that information up very quickly for them, or they can go to michigan.gov/vote, and they can type in their name, their date of birth, and it will tell them if they have received a ballot. When it was mailed, it shows actually when we actually mail the ballot to them. And it also shows them that once they fill it out and they drop it off to us or get it back to us, when we receive that ballot, when we scan it in. So it's a nice tracking device. So it will show the voter exactly when we issued the ballot and when it was returned.
And then a follow-up question to that. When is the last day that people can request an absentee ballot? And do you have any recommendations, given that we have seen some delays in the mail? Should they still do that online, or was there a recommendation to maybe come in person and get an absentee ballot?
I would recommend at this point that they come in person and get their absentee ballot. We are also, our office is going to have special hours, just like many of the other clerks' offices around, where we're going to have next Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to be open from 4:30 to 7:30. Next Saturday, we're going to be open from 8 to 1. And then the Tuesday and Thursday prior to the election, same thing, 4:30 to 7:30. And that Saturday before the election, Halloween, we're going to be open 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. So I definitely would suggest that people come in to pick up their absentee ballots.
And one of the things that we were talking about in our office this morning, just among our staff, is just how accessible all of the clerks are. So even if you are somebody who doesn't live in Royal Oak or Rochester Hills, and Tina and Melanie aren't your clerks, when in doubt, contact your clerk's office. They are here to help you. They're very accessible. I know that both these ladies can probably tell us everybody is working around the clock between now and election day to make sure the election runs smoothly. So if you do have questions, you're always welcome to contact our office, and we'll do our best to get you the information, but really just start at the source. Go to your clerk, reach out to them, and they can make sure that you're able to vote safely and securely. That is what they do. That's what they're passionate about. That's all they're doing between now and election day. So just wanted to
Senator,
make
can
sure
I
you guys are
plug our
accessible.
extra hours too?
Yeah, of course.
So we're also open later, and I want to make sure people know that Tuesdays and Thursday nights, we're staying open until 7 p.m. And then October 24th and the 31st on those Saturdays, we are open from 8 to 4 on both of those Saturdays to process absentee ballots. So we're trying to make ourselves very accessible to the public, give them extra hours to come in and take care of business so that they can feel that they're voting in a safe, secure environment if they're not comfortable standing in line at precincts.
Excellent. All right, another question that we're getting a lot is people are hearing a lot about drop boxes, that you can bring your ballot to a secure drop box. So if somebody wants to drop their ballot off at a drop box, number one, who is legally allowed to do that? And number two, where can people go to find out where there is a drop box near them?
So on the site that Melanie already mentioned, the michigan.gov/vote, there is an option on there that says, "Where's my clerk?" And if you click on that option and go to that link, it's going to, you put in your address. It tells you who your local clerk is, where they're located. And then there's also a segment on that down below that will tell you where their drop boxes are located in that particular community. So absentee ballots are pretty strict about who can have them in their possession. I don't have the entire verbiage in front of me right now, but it's a good, safe bet that it's an immediate family member or someone that it is their legal authority to deliver mail or packages.
So I think that's an important distinction. You can't give your ballot to, say, a friend who's going to a drop box or somebody who comes to your door who says they're a canvasser and they can take it for you. We want to make sure your ballot gets to your clerk. And the most secure way to do that is by you physically bringing it yourself to a drop box or to your clerk's office or an immediate family member. But I would say just for safety, make sure it's you. You are responsible for your ballot. Let's all be responsible voters. I clutch mine to me and want to make sure that I haven't lost it in my house. And I'm going to be physically bringing it to a drop box when I drop it off myself. So it's your vote. Make sure that it doesn't get lost on the way. And make sure you're the one bringing it either directly to your clerk's office or to a ballot drop box or showing up to vote on election day on November 3rd.
And we do have on our drop boxes, we have one in our parking lot and one inside the office, right in the foyer. There are video cameras that are pointed directly at both drop boxes. So I just want people to know they are in safe, secure locations and we are watching them 24/7.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good question. Melanie, who picks up the ballots from the drop boxes?
I have two staff members every day that go out there. They go out there every couple hours with a ballot transfer bag, and they go out there and they empty out the boxes and they come back and bring them in the office. And just as Tina had said, our drop boxes as well all have cameras on them. We have the one that's in front of the police department, the one that's in the back of the old city hall, and the new one that we have, the north corner of our new building now. Same thing, they're all under security cameras. So that should give some peace of mind to voters as well.
Excellent. Let's say you're a voter who you've got an absentee ballot and you're looking it over and you decide, you know what, I really want to go in person on election day. What should you do as a voter, Tina?
So the best thing that you can do is if you're deciding that you want to vote at the precinct, they can actually come in and surrender their ballot to us, or they can take it with them to the precinct and surrender it there. And that's what they should be doing, is taking their ballot with them to surrender. Because if they get to the precinct and they don't have their ballot to surrender, on our electronic poll book, and this is an important fact for people to know, every voter has a code if they've been issued an absentee ballot. So if they swipe that voter's license, it's going to lock that voter record. There's actually a message that will pop up telling the person at the electronic poll book whether or not that individual has been issued an absentee ballot or not. And so they're going to ask that voter at that time, do you have your absentee ballot to surrender to us? And if they do, that's at the point they would surrender it to them. If they do not, there's an affidavit of absent voter that the voter can complete, but there are only two options on there. And one of them says that I applied for the absentee ballot, but I never received it. And the second one is I received my absentee ballot, but it's either been lost or destroyed. And so if they know that their absentee ballot is at home on their dining room table, that doesn't qualify under one of the two reasons on the affidavit of absent voter, that they're for a reason of why they're not surrendering it to you. So they need to take the ballot with them, surrender it to them, because those voters are not allowed to continue processing that voter. The workers are not allowed to continue processing that voter until they call us here at City Hall and we spoil that ballot number. Then they're cleared to issue them a ballot at the precinct. But those ballots have to be accounted for the absentee issuance, just as they have to account for the ballots at the precinct.
Very secure process. And that is a question that we've been getting a lot, is how do we make sure that people are voting once?
Mhm.
All right, so this is something that's back on the ballots this year after going away for a little bit. We've been getting a lot of questions. What does straight ticket voting mean? And if you have selected a party at the top of your ballot, and then you're selecting other races as you go down the ballot, does that invalidate your ballot? Can you talk about the different ways to fill out that ballot? Melanie, let's start with you.
Yes, just as you said, at the top of the ballot here, we have partisan section. So a voter can just pick one of the parties if they prefer. If they don't want to go through the whole entire ballot and pick the candidates for that party, they can just select their party that they want to. And then all they would have to do is go to the nonpartisan section of the ballot and vote those as well as the proposals. If for some reason they want to pick a party, but they also want to pick different candidates from different offices, that does not invalidate your ballot. All of those votes are going to count. And I think that's the biggest, there's a lot of confusion around that. People are coming in saying they need to spoil their ballot, and they flat out say, oh yeah, I picked a party, but then I picked, and it's like, nope, that's okay. You can do that. All those votes are going to count.
So yeah, Tina, just for clarification. So just want to make sure everybody's very clear on it. If you've picked a party in the partisan section, but then you're also picking individual candidates in races, that is not going to invalidate your ballot, correct?
Right, and that's called a split ticket. And so the confusion that happens for Michigan voters is this is our third election cycle this year, and all three of them have had different voting instructions for voters. In March, they had to pick a ballot style, which one they wanted. And then in August, they could only vote in a party primary and they couldn't cross party lines. And so by the time they get to November, they've just been told all the things they cannot do, right? And so when they get to November, it's important for them to understand that the ballot almost becomes a free-for-all at that point. There are multiple ways that you can vote it. You can vote the straight party option, which will carry all the way through the nonpartisan. You can split your ticket, which, as Melanie mentioned, you're picking a party, and then you can go through and randomly pick whatever candidates you want that might not be in that party in other races. And then you can vote a mixed ticket where you don't even have to fill out the portion at the top where it's straight party. You might be a voter who says, I just vote for the candidate and not for a party. And you can go through and just mix that ticket up and vote for whatever candidates that you would like. So there's a lot more latitude with this ballot than they have had in the past two voting options for this year.
Yeah, and I think one way that I've been explaining it to people, which is kind of sad this year, considering we don't have as many, is think of it like March Madness. So leading up to it, we've had people in primaries who are competing to be their party's nominee, but now we're in the finals. This is it. So everybody's all in together at once, and you have the ability to vote for the candidates you want to, or vote straight ticket. But I do want to make sure everybody knows there are races and items on the ballot that are nonpartisan, correct? So what are some of the things that people should look for to make sure they're not missing those parts of their ballots? What types of things are in the nonpartisan section?
So you're looking at judicial races, for instance, or something that would be in the nonpartisan section. You're also going to have your proposals are going to be, in that point forward. And it's important too, in some of the communities, specifically, I believe some of the townships in Oakland County, because their township races are on this ballot also, they run with the presidential cycle. My understanding is there are townships in Oakland County that have pushed to another page. So for some of them, they might actually have one page, it's a front and back, and then an additional page because their races have pushed them over that. But you're looking at like the parks millages, things like that are all going to be on the backside. So a lot of money issues, again, as those nonpartisan, like the judicial races, for instance.
All right, Melanie, a question for you, which I think this is a good lead in into, is we've had a lot of people asking, particularly when you get to the local initiatives and nonpartisan races and school boards and things like that, people are like, where can I find out information about these candidates? And for everybody watching, people have reached out to our office and may not know that for me as a state legislator, I cannot legally advise people how to vote on their own ballot for things. So we have unfortunately, not been able to kind of share my insights on that because we take the separation between campaign side and state side in our office very, very serious. But Melanie, what are some resources that are out there for people who want to learn more about some of the local initiatives or for some of the local candidates?
I would say the best one that I would suggest is the League of Women Voters, and their website is www.lwv.org. And they can go there, and candidates have been asked questions and they can get their opinion, and it's all, nonpartisan as far as, they're not endorsing specific candidates. They will give you, if you are looking at a proposal, it'll say, if I vote yes, this is how I'm voting for that proposal. This is what it means. If I'm voting no, this is what it means for that proposal. And it just gives them a really clear and concise answer for those things. Also, I noticed in the review last week, they had some candidates that obviously are the local ones that are on the ballot, and they had their explanations and how they feel about different issues and everything else. So obviously your local papers are good as well, but the League of Women Voters is a really good resource. And we also have newspapers from them that they've dropped off. So if you do come into City Hall, you come into the main lobby, we do have those available for voters.
Tina, do you have any other suggestions on where people can learn about ballot proposals and local candidates?
The League of Women Voters is tried and true, and they've been around a long time, and that's always our first go-to source. And as Melanie mentioned, we've set up an elections help desk in our front lobby, trying to limit the touch points of people coming into City Hall. So if we can help them right there in the lobby, we are. And so if anybody comes into Rochester Hills City Hall, right in the front lobby there, we have an elections help desk, and there's somebody that can help them and give them a League of Women Voters guide right there. But they can also get it on the web.
Now, if somebody is looking up, let's say, a proposal or a local race, and they just can't decide, you've done the research, you've tried to find candidate websites, and let's say for whatever reason, I don't advise this. I think everybody should take the time and vote for everything on the ballot. But let's say somebody leaves one race blank. Is their ballot still going to be counted?
Absolutely. So there's nothing that requires you to vote everything on the ballot. And a lot of people choose not to, especially in races like you mentioned. Sometimes the school board races, they don't know people, or the Oakland Community College, maybe they don't know all the candidates on there. So you can even vote a blank ballot, to be honest with you. So someone can choose to do that. So you don't have to vote every race.
All right, so now I'm going to open it up to both of you. Melanie, want to give you an opportunity. What are some of the most frequently asked questions you've been getting, and what do you want voters to know as they think about the next few weeks?
A lot of people are asking, well, when can I turn my ballot in? And we are just advising, please turn it in as soon as you vote it. It just makes it so much easier for all of us in the clerk world. As soon as you can vote that, just please turn it in. They're also asking, if we prefer, if they should do it by mail, if they should do drop boxes. With all the drop boxes that all of the communities have now, it just makes much more sense to do it to the drop box, drop it off there, or drop it off to the city clerk's office. As far as, we're getting a lot of questions regarding signatures, because people are wondering, well, what are you comparing my signature to? And just so you know, we have the qualified voter file that all of us in the state of Michigan have, and that's what we're comparing your signature to. So if for some reason it's changed quite a bit or something, and it looks nothing like your signature in the qualified voter file, we're going to call the voter or email the voter and contact them immediately to make sure that we're just confirming that this is your signature. And if it has been updated to this, then we're going to scan that and put that into the system so that it's an updated signature.
And I think that's good to just think about the physical ballot itself. You're signing the outside of the ballot. So when your ballot is received by your clerk, that is how they're able to check the signature against the one on file, because they're not removing your ballot from the secrecy sleeve yet or looking at how you voted until, effectively election day, when we are allowed to start tabulating and counting the votes. So that's why that is the one element that will be checked and has a mechanism now in place where you, the voter, would be contacted if it doesn't match because it's on the outside, which is a good reminder to everybody. Make sure you sign your ballot. It's on the outside. Read the instructions. Make sure you are submitting it with a signature so that it will be counted. Tina, what are some of the most frequently asked questions you are getting?
Yeah, so I obviously the signature is always a big one, and sometimes that's followed up with or even referred to in, how do I know if my ballot passed on the signature, that you are not rejecting it because the signature didn't match. And so I go back to that really helpful site that the Secretary of State's office has of the michigan.gov/vote, is they can go on there and check. And as Melanie mentioned earlier, they can not only see the date that we mailed them their ballot, but they're also going to see a date on there that says received. And when you see the date received, that means that it has already passed. We've already checked the signature. We do not receive on ballots until we've checked the signature. So if you see a received date on there, we have already checked that signature and your signature has matched what is on file. So I also get, and pardon me if you mentioned this, Melanie, but in the signature, they often ask, which one are you comparing to, my voter registration or my driver's license? A lot of those are your driver's license signatures that we're comparing against, because some people are like, well, I registered to vote when I turned 18, my signature doesn't look anything like that. And so we're looking at the vast majority of the time, the signature on file of the Secretary of State is from your driver's license. The other thing that I want to mention is a lot of people are asking about registration, and that's something that with proposal 18-3 is that we now have same-day registration in the state of Michigan. And prior to that, presidential election cycles were a time where we would see a lot of provisional ballots. And I'm really hoping, and I'm excited about the fact that we might not have that many provisional ballots. I mean, we always want to cure every situation we possibly can so that that voter knows that their ballot actually counted. And some of that is paying attention to the registration requirements. So October 19th, which is coming up very quickly, is the last day that someone can register to vote other than with their local clerk. So if someone, maybe they're at school or they're away on a business trip or something like that, and they need to get registered to vote, Monday is that deadline that they can do it anywhere except for with their local clerk in person. And they can do that now. Online registration is available through the Secretary of State's website. So they can do that there. And then once they come in, they can come in and still register to vote with us up to and on election day now in the state of Michigan.
All right, so I'm just going to do an alert for everybody watching. We've pretty much made it through all of the questions that I had pre-planned. So if you have any additional questions, this is your call to drop them in the comments right now. I'm going to start to go through some of the ones that we are getting in the comments section. Tina, you just answered the first question that we saw, which is, how do you know that your signature was accepted if you see the received? So that's good to know that it's not marked received on the tracking website until the signature is matched. So you did it, it's confirmed, it's in, it has been accepted. And just a reminder for everybody, you can track that ballot at michigan.gov/vote, and you can find all the information that you need there.
Yeah. With the signature and the tracking on there too, just so you know, part of the bill that passed too was that clerks are now required, which I want to point out, we were always doing this anyway, but we're now required to contact someone immediately in whatever way we possibly can. So if you are a voter that is submitting an application for an absentee ballot, it's really imperative for you to put your phone number and your email on that application, because that is the quickest way that we can contact you. We're going to send you a letter in the mail, but that can take days. If we have a phone number or we have an email, we can reach out to you immediately and say, hey, we have an issue with the signature. Let's try to get this taken care of immediately so that your vote can count. And so it's important when you see that we're not trying to be Big Brother and we're not trying to build some database on you. We're trying to actually be able to contact you should there be an issue that your signature doesn't match.
That's a great point. Melanie, from your perspective, how long does it usually take from when somebody turns in a ballot for that tracking website to be updated? What kind of time frame should people be expecting?
Definitely within 24 hours. Because once we receive it, as we said earlier, we check the signature, we date stamp it, and we scan the ballot, and then we lock it up until election day. So 24 hours, definitely, it's scanned in by then.
And speaking of timing, I know this has been a question, especially this year. When should we expect the results, and the difference between, I think, projections and final results? Because I think one thing that a lot of people don't know is elections in Michigan are not certified until a date many days afterwards already. So that is already happening. But I want to we'll start with Melanie and then go to Tina. What are you looking at this year in terms of numbers of absentee ballots? And what do you anticipate in terms of how long it will take to count those and to get results?
Well, we have over 25,000 absentees that we have already issued. And with a population of just over 50,000, you can do the math, it's quite a few of absentees. We actually are going through the county. Our absentee counting board workers are working out there. So they have more areas to social distance, and they have a lot more workers. They have all of our high-speed scanners along with all these other high-speed scanners. So they're going to be able to get those done the night of for sure. As far as the results throughout the state, this is a new one for all of us. We've never seen this kind of volume before. We're all doing the best we can. We all have as much of equipment that we can possibly get to get the job done. So I'm hoping we know within the week.
Tina, what are you seeing?
I think this is the $1 million question, certainly. I'm hopeful that we're done sometime, probably late into Wednesday morning, to be honest with you. So we are processing our absentee ballots here at City Hall. Fortunate that our mayor allows us to shut down City Hall on election day. So our whole lower level of City Hall becomes our absentee counting board. So we will be processing them on site. So I think it's also important too for people to realize if they're going to the Oakland County website to look at election results, they have a map on there that will say partially reported and fully reported. So typically when you see partially reported, so what that means is either that the precincts have reported and the absentees haven't, or the absentees are reported and the precincts are not. So that's what it means partially. It's one or the other, either the precincts or the absentees, but not both. If it says fully reported, you know that the precinct results and the absentee results for that particular precinct have been reported. So while you may see numbers out on the site, they might be partial numbers. And so keep that in mind. Those may be the numbers from the precincts only. The absentees are probably going to come in much later, to be honest with you. We typically see 15 to 20% of our absentee ballots are returned on election day. And as I mentioned, we're already getting really close to that 30,000 number. And if that 15 to 20% of them come back on election day, that's going to be a substantial number of ballots that we're still going to be counting. And that means too, that even if those are people that are dropping off their ballot between 7:30 p.m. and 8 o'clock on election night, we still have to put those ballots through that purity process, if you will, of checking the signature and balancing out that precinct. And then we can take that back to the absentee counting board room. So it's not like people can just drop them off and we take them right back and start counting them. We still have to put them through the process and account for those ballots. So if we're fully reported by 3 a.m., I'm just going to be honest with you, I'm going to be pretty happy about that. I'd love for it to be earlier. I strongly supported the Senate bill that allowed us to start pre-processing on Monday. While I would have liked to have seen it gone further than that, it did not. So I'm going to take that for what it is, and we're still going to be pre-processing on that Monday. And I'm hoping that that helps expedite that.
And Tina, can you explain the difference between processing and counting? So if you turn in your absentee ballot early, that ballot's not being counted ahead of time, correct?
No, and that's why you have up until 10 a.m. on Monday to actually spoil it, because at that point, like Melanie mentioned earlier, we've checked that ballot in and we've received on it, but it's back in a secured area in a vault, waiting for election day. But now we're allowed to start processing on Monday. So we can do this from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. the day prior to the election. At that point, when we receive your ballot, it's coming back to us in a green and white envelope. when you open that envelope, what would be inside is the secrecy sleeve with the ballot in it. So on Monday, what we're allowed to do is we're allowed to open that green and white envelope, pull a ballot out in the secrecy sleeve still. It has to remain in the secrecy sleeve. And then we're comparing on the ballot stub. So if I issued you Senator ballot number 1000, I'm looking at the label that is on your envelope. Does it say that that was ballot 1000? So that number is on there. We're comparing the two of them. And then at that point, we're going to be bundling those up in groups of maybe 25 or 50, whatever the clerk's preference is, accounting for all of those and sealing those back up until Tuesday morning, when at that point we can start processing them. So I'd like to, if you don't mind, even at this point, because I think it's a good plug, on the label of your envelope, we've gotten a lot of phone calls, and I know there was a video going around that was telling people that they were concerned about their absentee ballots, that a postmaster or someone along the line could tell by looking at their ballot whether they are a Republican or a Democrat based on the label that is on their envelope. That is incorrect. Number one, in the state of Michigan, you do not register with a party. So I have no idea, as with you being my constituent, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat unless you've ran for office. We do not know what your party preference is. So keep that in mind. What you are going to see on your label is your name and address. There's going to be a barcode. You'll see the election date on there, a precinct number, and then there is going to be a number on there, but that number references the stub on your ballot, and that's how we compare them to make sure that you're returning the correct ballot.
Got it. I think that's really, really helpful information to know. And we had gotten some of those questions too about ballot envelopes being labeled by party, and that's just not a thing here in Michigan. All right, Melanie, I'm going to ask you, Tad asks, what is the role of a poll watcher and a poll challenger? And how do people become a poll watcher or poll challenger officially?
A poll watcher can be anybody that decides they just want to come into the precinct and watch the process. They don't touch anything. They aren't around anything. They're just watching the process. They can get a chair and just sit down and watch what's going on. A poll challenger is someone that actually has to go through the chairperson of the precinct, and they have to go up to them with any kind of challenges that they might have. If they feel that maybe a voter that's in line isn't of legal age, they can go with the chairperson over to the voter, have the voter there's an oath that is read out loud, and the voter agrees to answer the questions. They answer the question, and then that's it. They move on. The challengers are pretty much, we see challengers and watchers for mostly general presidential elections. So they definitely will be out for November 3rd.
And I know this was an issue that came up today, and a question we just got. Are people allowed to carry weapons inside of a polling place?
So as we know, we just got, we were mentioning this earlier, we just were notified with an order by the Secretary of State and the Attorney General that the open carrying of a firearm is prohibited in a polling place, inside a hallway used by voters to enter or exit a polling place, and within 100 feet of an entrance to a building containing a polling place on election day. And then it specifically says outside of 100 feet, no person can act in a way that would tend to intimidate, hinder, or impede voters on their way to the polling place. These prohibitions also apply to elections clerk's offices or absentee counting boards on election day.
And I think that's an important distinction between, poll watchers and poll challengers. These are, anybody can do it, but the poll challengers, that's an official role. You take an oath. But we want to make sure that we're not seeing voter intimidation at polling. You as a voter, everybody should feel safe to go to the polling place, bring your kids. I remember going with my mom to vote when I was very little, and it's a really exciting process. So we want to make sure that people are voting safely and are not feeling voter intimidation.
I want to point out too on the challengers, because we've gotten this question from people. They are required, and so are poll watchers, to wear a face mask in the precinct. So our policy is you are an employee of the city of Rochester Hills if you're an election inspector. So you are our employee on election day. You're expected to follow our protocols, which is you have to wear a mask or a face shield when you cannot maintain 6 feet of distance. And so all of our election inspectors will have on face masks or face shields. We recognize the fact that we cannot require that of voters. We do have extras out there. Should a voter walk in, maybe they forgot theirs in their car, they can put a mask on if they would like. So we do provide extras at the precinct for them. But I want to point out that the Secretary of State does release a document that tells us everything that an election challenger and a poll watcher can and cannot do. And in there, it does specifically say they must wear a face covering over their nose and mouth at all times while inside. So if you plan on being a challenger or a poll watcher, you are expected to wear a face mask while you are working in the precincts.
Great advice, and good that that guidance is clearly written down for everybody to make the decision for yourself. Is this something you're comfortable doing? If not, maybe signing up to be a poll challenger is not for you, because these are the rules that are in place to keep everybody safe this year at the polls. All right, we've got a question from Mallory, great name, and it's not me, who says, I voted absentee in person and dropped my ballot at the drop box in front of the police station, but I keep receiving personalized mail addressed to me, reminding me to turn in my ballot or apply for a ballot. Is this an oversight? Does that come from the clerk officially? I know the answer to this. Or are there other organizations that send mail out to voters?
There's many.
Melanie, we can start with you.
There's many organizations out there. Obviously, the different parties, different political groups, different people that are looking to pass, the proposals on the ballot. There's so many different organizations and so many groups, and they know who's received a ballot, and they are mailing to people that have ballots because they want to be able to give the information from their side and give it to the voters. So yes, we are all getting inundated with election propaganda. And I know even Tina, you know this, with absentee ballots. I mean, I think I've received 4 or 5 from different organizations, and obviously I've already voted. I mean, they have the right to do that, and it's not us. I swear we're not doing this. We don't have time, and we don't do that anyways. But yeah, there are a lot of groups that are just inundating people's mail.
Yeah, they're sending out a lot of applications. So we're getting multiple applications are sent out by all these various groups. And I know they have the best intentions, but a lot of times it causes voter confusion because a lot of them try to mimic what ours look like. And I was like shocked in August when I had a voter call me for that election and say, I got an application and your name is in the upper left-hand corner. I'm like, what? We don't send things out with clerks' names on them. So first of all, I'm like, that can't be from us because my name would not be on there. So can you tell me what else it looks like? And so there is an organization that did include the clerks' names and their clerk's mailing address as a return. And so they did, like I said, try to make it look like it was very official and coming from us. And people were like, I'm getting multiple of these. And does that mean that people could apply for multiple ballots because they got multiple applications? No, the system will only allow us to issue the one ballot, and we do track those applications. We keep them on file.
Yeah, and I'll just say from the perspective of somebody who was a candidate once and kind of on the other side of this and will be one again in 2 years, we via the parties, via kind of independent stuff, whether or not you have turned in your ballot is public and accessible via your voter file. So when we were going door to door, our database would tell us if somebody had turned in an absentee ballot. Now, I want to be very, very clear. We have no idea how you voted, who you voted for. All of that is private. Your vote is private. But whether or not you have voted is public and accessible via parties. So top tip, if you want to stop getting mail and people at your doors and phone calls, is to turn that absentee ballot in as quickly as possible. Because a lot of people on campaigns are volunteers, they're young people, they're seniors. It is limited time. It's a high pressure situation. They're going to want to make sure they are talking to voters who they could still potentially have an impact with. And if you've already voted, you fall off the list. Now, sometimes those databases take a little bit of time to catch up. So Mallory, if you're still getting mail from some outside groups, hopefully that peters off soon. And it will certainly peter off 3 weeks from now, and we can all rejoice in the fact that the election is over and we'll stop getting calls and texts and mail. But just want to make sure that everybody knows that that is information that is accessible to some of these independent groups and to candidates, but how you vote is absolutely private, is secure, and there is no way for anybody to know how you voted. All right, scrolling through. We have some very kind words for our clerks. Thank you so much for taking care of everybody. My mom is popping in to say she dropped off her ballot in Pennsylvania. Thank you, Mom. Not relevant to this call, but I'm very excited about that. And she is counting the days until this election is over, and I'm sure all of us are as well.
And you tell Ray that if he needs another sticker, I'll get him one.
Oh, did you see that in there? My husband is asking where he can get I voted. He just loves stickers, so he's very excited about civic duty and participation. All right, this is a question. I want to make sure I don't lose it. I moved from Texas and don't have a Michigan license. Can I register online to vote? And if not, how can I register to vote? I'll open it to either one.
Okay. All right. So again, if you have, they can use their social security number when filling out their voter registration. So they can use that. Also know that when you go to the polls, you can also use an out-of-state license as identification as long as it's current. Okay, so if you go to the polls and you go to show ID, if you have an out-of-state license, it has to be a current license, but that can be used for identification at the polls. But there are two options on the voter registration form. One of those is your driver's license number. The other one is social security information. So not everybody has a driver's license or a state ID. So there have to be other options for people to register to vote.
Excellent. All right, this is going to be the last question because I know, Melanie, you've got an event right after this. So Jill asks, what about wearing campaign items at the polls? Is that allowed for a regular voter or person? And is it legal to take a selfie as you're voting?
Well, as far as the candidate wearing a button or anything like that, our poll workers will ask you to please remove the button, or if you do have some, like a t-shirt promoting a candidate, if you have a jacket on, they're going to ask that you please zip up your jacket, because the polling place we don't have any campaign literature, nothing. That's why we have the 100-foot markers at all the precincts. So anything behind the 100-foot is fine, but you cannot walk into a precinct with any kind of political attire on.
Yeah, it's like the bubble of secrecy is not the word, but bubble of privacy, where within 100 yards of that polling place, you can't be campaigning. Campaigning ends at that 100, at that marker in the parking lot or outside of your polling place. And for any of us who have run for office, we're very, very careful to stay outside of that line. So yeah, if you are very excited about your candidate and you're wearing a t-shirt, I would just bring a sweatshirt. It just be safe. Once everybody's inside, you're kind of in a campaign-free zone. You're in a voting zone. So that's my advice. And then Tina, is it legal to take a selfie of you and your ballot when you're voting?
So there was a court ruling in the last couple of years. It says you can take a picture of your voted ballot, but you can't do ballot selfies in the precinct. And so there are a lot of clerks or a lot of communities have areas outside of the voting area where people have like voting selfie stations set up, but inside the voting booth, you cannot take a ballot selfie. So I give a situation like my son-in-law is 6'6", and for him to do a ballot selfie with his hand way up in the air, he could possibly capture someone else's ballot. And that's the danger of that, is that you can take a picture of your own ballot, but not a ballot selfie.
Got it. And I know I said that was the last question, but there's one that just came in that's related. Is it acceptable to photograph your own ballot and share it with people who may be asking how you voted?
Yes, so you can take a picture of your own ballot now. You just cannot do ballot selfies. So that was clarified in that court ruling. So, but
Perfect.
while you
so
have
it is again
your phone out, can I point out that in Rochester Hills, because we are concerned that we might have lines, we have created QR codes for every ballot style that we have. It will be on the entrance of every precinct, as well as taped up throughout the hallways leading up to that precinct. So as you're waiting in line, most cameras now on your cell phone, you don't have to have a QR code reader anymore. You can just point your camera at the QR code. It will pull up the PDF for that sample ballot for the precinct that you're at. And that will give you opportunity to view your ballot while you're waiting in line, so that when you get to the privacy booth, it's not the first time you've seen the ballot. And hopefully that will help expedite the voting process.
All right, with that, Melanie, do you have any final words for our voters over the next few weeks?
Just be safe, and if you haven't got your ballot yet, come on in, come see the new City Hall. We only are open in the lobby at this point, but at least you can kind of get a glimpse of part of the building. And yeah, and I also want to thank, we've had so many applications for election inspectors. We've never had an overwhelming amount of apps like this, and we are full at this point. But I just want to say thank you to the community for really stepping it up. And I know it's across Michigan, we're all seeing this, and we're all just, it's great.
And don't let up after this year. It's a big election year, but if you want to be a poll worker, come out next election and the election after that. We definitely need more people to be involved, and it's an exciting way to feel like you did something that really helped.
Thing again.
Of course.
I just want to point out, so this is the information that we give our election workers, and based on that court ruling, and it says voters are prohibited from sharing images of a voted ballot within 100 feet from the polling place. Okay,
Got
so if they do take a picture of their ballot, it says they can't share that within 100 feet of the polling place.
It's that privacy, no campaign circle.
Right.
So if you're sharing information,
pictures, like you can't take a picture of the precinct, but just your ballot.
Yeah. All right, Tina, final words for voters as we head into the final stretch.
This is your greatest privilege as an American. I mean, it truly is to vote. It's so empowering to make your voice heard, and the ballot box is the great equalizer. It doesn't care who you are, where you're from, you know, how much money you make. Everybody's vote counts the same at the ballot box. Your voice should be heard for what you stand for and what you believe in. Melanie and I are working tons of hours, and our staffs are working a ton of hours to make sure that you have this privilege and this right, and to provide you a safe, secure place to vote. And so we want you to do it. So please get out and vote, whether it's your choice to do it by absentee or choice to do it in person. Whatever way you choose, we're ready for you, we're waiting for you, and we want you to do it. So please get out and vote. Thank you.
Awesome. I couldn't have said it any better myself. So thank you everybody for tuning in. We got a lot of great questions. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Melanie, for being our election experts and answering all of the questions. And for everybody who saw this and wants to share it with family and friends, it will be immediately available on our Facebook page, but we're also going to put it up on YouTube and on my Twitter account so that we can get it to as many people as possible and get your questions answered. Thank you again, and happy voting, everybody. We are almost there.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.